Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thanks for stopping by. I'm Carol and I'm glad to have you here. I hope you will consider subscribing. So today I have another canning video for you. We are going to make the most out of our Easter ham and we're going to can up some delicious ham stock. Now, ham stock is fantastic to have on your shelf. You can use it to cook vegetables like green beans or potatoes. You can use it, of course, as your cooking liquid for bean soup or split pea and ham soup. Any place you would like a nice smoky flavor in baked beans is great, and it's also great to use for making gravy. So I'm going to take you through the process on making it super simple, and then after we make the stock, we're going to be canning it up. A couple of things. One of the things that I'm going to show you is I like to cook up any meat stock one day and can it the next day. Because that allows me to refrigerate it overnight and allows the fat to rise to the top, and then I can skim that off and then it's not in my jars. That's not necessary for safety, but if you don't do it, just know that that fat layer as your jars cool will rise to the top and you'll have a small layer of fat across the top of your stock if you don't do that. Again, I just wanted to point out that it's not for safety. I just do it because I don't particularly like that layer of fat sitting on my stock when I'm storing it on my shelves, but it is not necessary for safety. The other thing that I wanted to mention is I'm going to be using the 4-jar lids today. These lids require simmering. Now, some of the lids that we use, like the ball lids and the superb lids, those are not, it is not required that you simmer those first, and actually they recommend that you do not simmer them first. I know many of you complain about seal failures with ball lids. If you are simmering ball lids prior to using them, that could be a reason why your seals are failing. They changed the compound a number of years ago and they're not required to be simmered prior to use. So just keep that in mind. Whatever lids you are using, make sure you read the instructions and you know if you should simmer them or just wash them and use them as is. The other thing I wanted to point out before we get started is you can use a number of aromatics to make your stock. I kept mine very simple and just cut up an onion, use some garlic and some peppercorns and a bay leaf, but you could add other things. Anything that you would use to make vegetable stock, you can add that to your ham shank when you are cooking it up. So carrots, celery, any type of root vegetable. Sweet potato is lovely, adds more nutritional value to it, gives it a pretty color, and it's great in stock. So just know that I'm keeping mine pretty simple, but you can add whatever aromatics you would like. The other thing that I wanted to point out is all types of meat stock must be pressure canned, so we are going to be pressure canning today. I know many of you do not like pressure canning, but it is not safe to water bath can stock of any kind. It is made with low acid ingredients, so I'm going to be pressure canning it. Please do not water bath can it. So I'm going to bring you in close and we're going to get started. Okay guys, so we are all set to make our ham stock. I've got my ham bone in here that was left over from my spiral sliced ham from Easter. I cut off as much meat as I thought I would use for something else and left the rest for flavor. To this, I'm going to add, you can add whatever aromatics you want to add. It's kind of hard to see here, but I have 1 onion that I've quartered. And then I have 4 cloves of garlic that I took the paper off of. I'm also going to add a bay leaf and some peppercorns, about a tablespoon or so of peppercorns. You could use celery here, you could use carrot or another vegetable, any other type of seasonings you like. I'm keeping mine pretty basic, and then I'm going to cover it with water. All right, so you just want to cover everything with water. I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on. I'm going to set my heat to high to get it started. Once it starts to simmer, we want a very gentle simmer. I'll bring you back and show you what I mean by that. We just want it to be a very gentle simmer for about 3 to 4 hours. So I'm going to get going here and I'll bring you back in just a bit. Okay guys, I wanted to bring you in close and show you what I mean by a really slow, gentle simmer. See, you can just see a few bubbles happening periodically. That is what we're looking for, and we want to let it simmer nice and gently like that for about 3 to 4 hours. Oh, I did want to add that I am simmering my stock with the lid on, but a jar. We don't really want to lose any of our liquid, so I do leave the lid on and let it be a little bit ajar. I think that's the best way to cook stock. That's just the way I do it. If you leave the lid off completely, you will have more evaporation. So I don't want much evaporation, so that's why I'm using the lid. Okay guys, I have cooked my stock for about 3.5 hours and it looks and tastes amazing. So now we are ready to strain it. I just have a big stainless steel bowl with a wire mesh sieve across the top of it that I'm going to strain the stock into. I did remove the huge ham bone, but we're going to strain out all the aromatics that I put in. All right, we have some really beautiful stock here. I'm going to let this continue to cool to room temperature, and then I'm going to put it in the refrigerator overnight. So tomorrow morning, I'll skim off any fat that rises to the top, and then I will show you how to can it up. Okay guys, so it is the next day. I did put my stock in the refrigerator overnight like I told you. This step is completely optional. You can it up as soon as you make it if you want to, but any meat stock I like to let sit overnight in my refrigerator because as you can see, all the fat rises to the top. So it's not necessary for safety to do this. But I like to do it. So I left this in the refrigerator, like I said, overnight. I'm going to remove the fat off, and then we are going to pour our stock back into our stock pot. We have to bring it up to a full boil before we can it up. Okay, here we go. We are all set for canning. I do have 3 quarts of simmering water in the bottom of my pressure canner. Make sure you follow the instructions that come with your pressure canner. My jars, I have washed them. We do not need to pre-sterilize them, but I did wash them and they are hot. I brought my stock back up to a boil, like I said, per canning guidelines. The lids, as I mentioned before, I am using 4-jar lids and I did simmer them. So we are all set to get started here. So we are going to ladle our stock into our jars and we want 1 inch of headspace. Okay, I've reached my 1 inch headspace. There's nothing to debubble because it's all liquid, so we do not need to release any air bubbles. I've dipped a paper towel in white vinegar that I'm going to use to clean the rims of my jars. We don't want anything to interfere with a good seal. And then I'm going to get my lids out of the simmering water. And then we're going to add our bands to fingertip tight. And in the canner they go. Okay, I've got 4 quarts of beautiful stock in my canner. I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of white vinegar to my canning water. That just keeps minerals in our water like to collect on the outside of the jars. If you use a little bit of vinegar, it prevents it from doing that. It'll keep your jars nice and clear during the canning process. I'm going to add my lid. I'm lining up the arrow with a notch. That's what's required for the All-American canner. If you're using a different canner, make sure you follow the instructions that come with that canner. We're going to be tightening down the lid. You want to make sure it's fairly even on all sides. You're going to do your thumb screws 2 at a time from the opposite sides. All right, I've got my heat cranked up to high. We are going to let this go until we see steam coming out of our steam vent. We want the steam to come out for 10 minutes. At that point, we will add our weight. Okay, we've been venting for 10 minutes, so it's time for me to add my weight. I am going to be processing at 10 psi. Make sure you know your altitude and you know what adjustments you need to make as far as what psi you should be canning at. I'm going to go ahead and add my weight. Once my weight starts rocking and rolling, I can start my processing time. We are canning in quarts, so we need to process for 25 minutes. If you're canning in pints, you just need to process for 20 minutes. For the All-American canner, your weight should rock 1 to 3 times a minute. It'll rock and then stop and rock and then stop, and that should happen 1 to 3 times a minute. You want to adjust your heat just to maintain the appropriate rocking. You do not want it rocking constantly. Now, the Presto canner is required to rock steadily throughout the canning processing time, so make sure you know what canner you have and what is appropriate for the canner that you are using. So again, once my weight starts rocking, I'm going to process for 25 minutes and then I'll bring you back. Okay guys, we are all set. I processed for 25 minutes, like I told you, which is appropriate for quart jars. And then when my processing time was up, I turned my heat off, let my canner return to 0 pressure, removed my weight, waited about 5 minutes or so, and then I just kind of make my lid go, let my lid be ajar on my canner for 5 minutes to cool things down more slowly. That helps prevent siphoning. And then I let my jar sit in my canner an additional 10 minutes. So we are all done with processing here, and you can see how beautiful the ham stock is. So yummy, and just a great way to get the most out of your Easter ham. So I hope you enjoyed coming along with me today. As always, if you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comment section below. You can find the recipe and all the instructions that you need in the description box as well. Have a great day, guys, and I'll see you next time.